What is going on, everybody? I'm Jason Stoltz, and welcome back here to another episode on Prodigious Customs. Check it out, we finally got our head back after a month of waiting, but I couldn't be happier. It came out looking beautiful, so I'm really impressed with the machine shop and the thoroughness they went through, how clean everything is. I'm most impressed with the purple Celica's motor head, how orange and stained it was from all the burnt oil came out looking identical to this one. Although I didn't have them do anything to it because I'm not building it just yet. I want to get this car done and finished and moved on to the next project, which I think you guys will find super cool. At least I'm really pumped for it. Kind of diving down the JDM typical rabbit hole, but you know, let's see what greatness comes from that. I went ahead and ordered a kit off of the internet for gaskets for this thing, and unfortunately it took a lot of digging. There was some kits that would just come with like the head gasket and the valve cover gasket, and ones that I found more appealing, but none of them had the later model head gasket for the exhaust manifold. There is a set of holes up higher on the head that only the 2002 and later motors had, which this is, so I had to keep searching and the kit ended up being more expensive. But I went ahead and got valve studs, new timing chain, a new water pump. While you're in there, you might as well swap it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing thrown back together. I'll go ahead and just time lapse it. You know how it came out, I filmed that. You can go ahead and check that video out and it'll take it a lot slower, whereas this, I just kind of want to get it back together and in the car. And so we'll just go ahead and time lapse up to that point, and then we'll go ahead and start filming once we fire this thing back up. So stick around, stay tuned. So before I'm mounting the head back in there, since they're such a joy to get to, I'm gonna go ahead and put and mount the exhaust manifold on the back of the head. Just that way when I set it in there, then it's done. I don't have to worry about getting to those bolts, trying to torque them down or anything like that. My gasket kit also came with a new donut, so I'm gonna work on getting that off and the new one on there. I've never taken one off, so hopefully it goes smooth. We'll see. It might be best to have just left it alone, but I'm gonna go for it just for everybody's entertainment. So let's try it. Well, that went surprisingly well, so I'd recommend it. If you got one, definitely take the time to slide that off there, pop it back on. It's gonna make a better seal, and it was really easy to do. Let's go ahead and get this exhaust manifold thrown on here. Just a quick note, when reinstalling these, go ahead and put a little bit of engine oil on your threads and on your washer. Just kind of dunk it in there. That way you're gonna get a true reading with your torque wrench. Okay, one important note just to remember is your arrows on each of these. Let's see if I can get it there. Make sure they're all pointing towards the front of the motor. That's the side of the motor where the timing chain is. And make sure you have them all in order. 1 through 5. And it looks like everything's good to go. So let's start tightening them down. Alrighty, everybody. This is kind of getting old, but if you can see, there was no keeper in this thing. We noticed that the crank was really hard to come off, the crank pulley, and the keeper that belongs in there, the half moon little key that slides on the crank, is missing. And then I looked over here in this area back here and I found the keeper. Well, as you can see, it has been beat to hell, stretched out, and it's not going to really work. So I'll have to pull one off the other motor. The next problem I have is I can only get this stupid crank position gear out to here. I'm going to have to file the end of the crankshaft because it is so wallered out that I can't get the gear off in order to see my timing marks. So, yeah, I'm not having a lot of fun doing this anymore, to say the least, but I'm going to get it done regardless. I'm going to make it right so that I know and have peace of mind putting this motor back together. Alrighty, everybody, this is where we're at. We had a messed up Woodruff key. First things we noticed was that our balancer came off really difficult, and clearly they tried to force it on 90 degrees out. The timing gear, as far as the crank position goes, has got a nice chunk out of it. It looks okay-ish on this side, but you can tell that it's ripping away up here. The actual timing gear that the timing chain rides on has clearly been broke out. So a whole lot of carnage. It's really a miracle that this car ran. I am truly impressed. Everything was just wedged tight enough that it sat there. It was a little bit out of time, and I imagine that it was to the side of being retarded so that everything was kept safe. There wasn't any pre-detonation or any issues like that going on. So I pulled the Woodruff key out of the other motor. The timing chain kit actually came with one of these, a new timing gear, the crank position sensor. I just went ahead and pulled off the other motor. It's nice and oil stained, doesn't fit the build, but you know what, I have it, it's free, and I don't have another brand new one that came in the kit. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those thrown in there. It was kind of a pain in the butt to get all of these parts off based on the fact that the end of the crank had actually mushroomed out some. So I had to file and sand and slowly work at it until everything slid off, and then I went ahead and polished up the crank as good as I could with some 1000 grit, just so that it's happy. And so we'll start continuing back with throwing this thing back together and getting it in time and all that kind of good stuff. All right, as you can see, I got everything to slide on where it should be. I got my timing mark on the timing mark of the chain. I got my new guides on, slid onto place, as well as I got my timing marks where they need to be. I don't know how well you can see that. Let me grab the light. As you can see, they're where they should be. This one is currently under pressure from the other valves, so it's looking like it's a little off, but it's really not. Once we get the tensioner in, it's going to be exactly where it should be. So I don't really like the design. I'd rather be able to spin it over and check, make sure that everything still lines up, but that's just kind of what we're dealing with. Let's go ahead and start working on the timing chain cover, and gonna go ahead and replace all of our rubbers in here. as well as a new tensioner. It came in the kit. Also, do not forget to throw on a little bit of RTV right here where the head meets the block. That's where that little cross was that we threw some RTV on. Go ahead and be sure to scrape and clean all this off, and then go ahead and throw yourself a little bit of RTV there. Alright, special side note, do not forget your tensioner bolt. This goes for your tensioner pulley. I forgot it and had to pull the timing cover back off. Luckily I wasn't too far ahead and was able to come back to it. But do not forget to slide this into your timing chain cover before you put this back on. Now that I got everything attached, the motor mount back in, the tensioner on, I got the crank pulley back on, crank sensor in, all the bolts that go to it back together. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this thing over 2 full rotations and make sure that all my timing marks still line up, which means it's in time. I don't want to put everything back together and then hope. It's better to check it now, make sure everything's happy before moving on. All right, everybody, I kind of freaked myself out. The truth is, it takes 9 full rotations of the motor to get these lined back up. So when you set your timing, you got your timing on all your marks, rotate the motor over 9 complete times and make sure that everything lines back up. I was checking top dead center and I was like 2 teeth off and I was freaking out. But the truth is you have to rotate the motor over 9 times exactly and it will come back up. If it doesn't, or it comes up before then, you've done something wrong. The timing's not right. So go ahead and I'd make your adjustments or do whatever it is you got to do, and hopefully you got it. Don't freak out if it's not there before 9. It shouldn't be. So go ahead and rotate your motor over 9 times, make sure your time lines back up, and then continue throwing this thing back together. Alrighty, everybody. Moment of truth. Turned it over. Hopefully got oil to everything. Threw my fuses and my relay back in for my EFI. Everything is hooked up. We'll have to bleed the coolant system, obviously. I just did a fresh oil change, serpentine belt. As you may have noticed, I went ahead and swapped out for the factory air box. I didn't like the tube that was in there and the location of it, and without splash aprons and all that, it just wasn't a good deal. So, fingers crossed everything goes well. I don't know what's gonna happen. Your guess is as good as mine, but let's hope for good success, that everything's back together, everything's happy, and she'll fire up. So let's try it out. Dude, fired up? That's fantastic news. Hopefully I didn't make too big of a mess with coolant, but I'll get that bled down. That is great. Everything is happy. There's a high idle still. I'm not sure what the deal is there. Have to figure that out. Might check it with just the throttle cable unhooked and see if it's a lower idle. Maybe the idle set screws set high or something. I don't know what's going on there. But I'm pretty freaking excited. Alrighty guys, that's gonna wrap up this week's video. I'm sorry that didn't get to take you for a drive. I really wanted to, but somehow there's an issue with my cam circuit. I have exhausted, I feel like, every possible scenario. I have changed out the cam position sensor, not with a new one, but with another used one. I have checked the wiring all the way from here to the computer, as well as from the crank to the computer. They are connected. They share the same pin off of one side. This one's got a black and white, that's got a cream, but they both meet up before they go into one of the pins here in the ECU. I have checked my timing. I have checked, I feel like everything. But if you have something in mind that I should do, or you've dealt with this issue, please, I'm begging you, let me know. It's very disappointing to be this far, it runs that good, and to not have full confidence to send it down the road. There's a check engine light, clearly there's an issue, clearly something isn't right, and I want to rectify that before moving on. Thank you to those that have subscribed, the 29 of you. You guys were rock stars. I hope you keep watching the videos, and I hope you tell a friend. And anyway, have a great freaking week, and I'll see you on the next one.